On today's episode, we're installing the AVC B-pillar Lagun mount. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, Matt here for AVC and welcome back to the shop. Like we said in the intro, today we're going to be installing our Lagun B-pillar mount. Now, this is a great way to add a table here at your passenger seat that can be used in the camper build as well as here in your seat when you're swiveled around. It's an excellent work surface, so you can use your laptop from here. You can have a snack from here. You can eat a meal. You can even share a meal with someone sitting behind you. It's something we use here with our family all the time. And the coolest thing is you can add this at any point in your van build. So even if you have a fully built camper, you can throw into these B-pillar mounts into the B-pillar and start using this table right away. It's a super simple project. So if you want to pick one up for yourself, hit the links in the description below. Otherwise, let's get to work. So before we get installing this Lagun mount, let's talk about what options we have and what comes in the box. So we have Lagun mounts for your B-pillar. They're going to mount right here on the van. And we have them for your classic mount, which is going to be a 4-bolt pattern. And we also have them available for the Lagun Slim mount. Lagun Slim mount is a little bit newer. It's a little bit smaller. They both work just the same. And when they're mounted to a plate like this, they work really well. Today, we're going to be installing the classic mount. So let's take a look. So in the box with our classic mount, you're going to get the classic style Lagun mount, powder coated black. You're also going to get a baggie of hardware. That baggie of hardware is going to give you bolts to bolt it into your B-pillar into factory riv nut inserts in there. And it's going to be through bolt hardware so you can bolt your Lagun mount plate into the plate here itself. It does not include the Lagun base plate, but that is going to come with your Lagun system. So whatever Lagun table mount system you order, make sure you go ahead and order the corresponding plate here. So we're going to be installing that classic. So every Ford Transit that I've installed a Lagun mount on already has the threaded inserts here on the passenger side. Some of them have threaded inserts on the driver's side, but not all of them. And I would say most do not. So if you plan on putting one on your driver's side pillar so you can have matching tables on both sides, like I have 2 kid seats back here, you're gonna have to put riv nuts in that column before you get too deep into your project. The wall kit is gonna encroach on them, so getting your riv nut tool into there after you get wall kits and everything like that is gonna be a pain. So make sure you put those riv nuts in during the start of your project. It's gonna make an install like this nice later on. Now, if you put riv nuts in the wall over there on your driver's side pillar, the hardware I provide is probably not gonna correspond with the riv nut you put in. We provide M6 hardware. So if you put an M6 riv nut in there, then you're good. But if you put in something like an M8, because that fits a little bit easier in the factory holes over there, you're gonna have to find your own M8 bolt. No big deal, but just something to keep in mind. So before we install our Lagun pillar mount into the van, let's install our Lagun base plate to that, get these two mated up, because it's a little bit easier to install these before we mount it up to the vehicle. Okay, so the first thing is gonna be just dropping this hardware in here, and you'll notice that this hardware does not fit flush with the mount, and that's okay, because the arm of our Lagun mount is gonna sit here through the middle. It's not gonna interfere with the hardware at all. On the slim Lagun mount, we have a little bit smaller hardware and they fit nicely flush below the center mount. And that's necessary because the arm is gonna sit over the top of there and it'll collide with those bolts. It's all stainless steel hardware, so we include some Loctite anti-seize in here. So let's make sure we go ahead and put that on those bolts. So I'm just gonna put a little dab of that anti-seize on there. Make sure we don't get any galling as we put this stainless hardware together. Then we're just gonna tighten these up by hand. All right, so we have all 4 bolts tightened up on here and we're ready to install them here on the pillar. So there are threaded inserts here on this pillar, and the easy way to find them is, I measured them out. They're 4 and 13 inches from this centering post here for the door. So if we just line our tape up here, centering right here on this post, then about 4 inches down, I'm just gonna make a little mark on my fabric, and 13 inches down, there. Okay, so 4 and 13 inches from that point. Then I'm just gonna take something like an awl, or I grabbed a little screwdriver because that's something you probably have at home. And I'm just gonna poke around here until I find that soft spot in the pillar. And then there it is. So, okay, there's one, and there's my second, okay. So I'm just gonna kind of ream it out a little bit with this fabric. If you have a soldering iron, you can melt it open, something like that. If you have an X-Acto knife or a utility knife, you can cut it open too. But it's pretty easy to put this in here. Okay, then we're just gonna take our M6 bolt, that's a M6 millimeter, and then our larger washer here. So I can see my hole right here and down here, and I'm just gonna get my M6 mounted through the plate and just get it ready to go. Then I'm gonna find that threaded spot. And I'm just gonna go slow until I catch those threads. And there we go. And that's good, okay? So I'm not gonna tighten it down all the way. Grab my second bolt. There it is, finally caught that thread. And there we go. Okay, so before I tighten it up, I'm just gonna note that we do have a little bit of room to bring it up or down. We just wanted a little bit of play in case you needed to bring this up or down, something like that. Everybody's build outs are different. Everybody has a little bit different things going on up here at the front. I like to drop mine down pretty low because I feel like the tighter it is to this wide flange, the more stable the plate is gonna be. So if you bring it all the way up here, it's not gonna be as stable because there's less for it to brace against. So I'm gonna drop it pretty low here. Just get this tightened up. Okay, there we go. So nice and solid. So our base plate is installed nice and tight, and we can grab our Lagun arm and go ahead and slide it onto here. Hi, Mr. B. Okay. So when it's in storage position and I'm not really using the table, I can drop it nice and low down here. My kids will use this as like a handle to get in and out of the van, but we actually mounted this handle lower in our van now. And because it has this ratcheting feature, the handle can stay nice and tight and out of the way. But if we're gonna bring it up here to kind of use position, okay, we can bring it up here, tighten it in, and then we can mount our arm here on top. So with our table arm and the whole Lagun assembly here, we're almost done. We just need a tabletop for this surface. So the thing I like to do is sit in the van, and we're gonna cut a piece of cardboard here, and we're gonna test out some sizes of tables and see what's gonna work best for a single person here to use the table, and then maybe position it here for 2 people to use across from each other. Lucky for us, we just put some Van Essential window shades in. Shout out to our friends at Van Essential. So I got a nice big piece of cardboard here, and I'll grab a utility knife and I'll cut it down to size. Another consideration we want to think about is where we're going to store the table when we're not using it. So if I'm going to make this table, as wide as this box right now, which is 20 inches, 20 inches wide for a table, that's actually not too bad, 20, 18, something like that. But I'm gonna have to store it here, probably behind the seat, which means it's gonna slide in here. So I don't want it too tall that I can't easily store it behind the seat. So let's go ahead and just make a mark here. We're gonna cut that down to size, and that'll be my starting size. So this table could easily store here behind the seats. It's low enough that it's not gonna be in my USB here. So it's gonna tuck nicely away, but it looks like I'm kind of maxing out on the size of the table. So let's get a measurement of this. We were 20 by 29. So that's a pretty good sized table. If I was gonna use this for 4 people, I think that'd be fine. I think for 2, it's gonna be a little bit big. Okay, so I could put this here. I could put it in between the people here. And I think it's just gonna be a little bit tight to both of us. I think if I needed to get away with a table this size, I could do it. So like a 20 by 30, pretty good size, but I think that would do. I think I'm gonna cut it down a little bit smaller. Let's go to 24. Okay, and 20 inches wide is a little big. I'm gonna go down to 18. Okay, so we'll go 24 by 18. We'll see what that looks like. When we're doing a cardboard table, we don't have to worry about being super precise here. We're just trying to get an idea of size. So don't waste too much time making everything square and perfect, all that kind of thing. We can worry about that once we get down to the wood. All right, so there we go. Okay, so I think this is a really nice size for 2 people. I can set it here, and let's go ahead. Do I have some tape? Oh, I don't have any tape with me. I was gonna say I could tape it in here, but if I needed to get out, I could sit over here, and this is enough for someone to sit across from each other in this spot and eat. And then if I turn this sideways, it can store, someone can use it back here in the back of the van. And you might want to consider maybe mounting it off center. So here, let's take a peek underneath. Okay. So when we talk about making it off center, if we mount it right in the middle of the table, when I rotate it, it's going to stay centered all the time. But if I have it mounted off center, then as I spin this around, I'm going to justify it one way or another, which means that I can push it out here into the middle of the van, and we're gonna have a little bit extra room. So I always like mounting my tables off center just so that we get more options with spinning them around for where they're going to configure in the van. If you're looking for something really simple, just a single person, this is an 18 by 14 table that we've done here in the shop. And I just cut this out of the drop on a cabinet project that we had around. It cut out of the scraps that were there, like inside of a kitchenette or something like that. So I already had this pre-laminated, everything like that. I'm gonna go ahead and mount screws to this, but you can use the principles where we designed this cardboard table here, and you can make it any size you want, and everybody's van build is gonna be different, so build what you need. So let's grab our tabletop and our base plate and go in the shop and put these two together. So we're here in the shop and let's talk hardware. So I have a 1/2 inch Baltic birch layer, and that's gonna be our tabletop. This is a perfect blend of lightweight, nice and strong, and really durable. So double laminated everywhere, easy to clean, easy to maintain, all that kind of thing. It's not gonna warp on us. And we're gonna screw it in because it's wood. So we're just gonna put some wood screws in here, keep it simple. And if we need to replace a table in 5 years, no big deal. But let's take a look here at what kind of hardware we can use. So I have these truss head screws that we use to build everything in the van, and a 1/2 inch truss screw is a little bit short, okay? It's not really gonna grab the meat of the screw. We're in that tapered zone on that screw, and so I don't think that's gonna grab very well. If I bump up to a 3/4 inch truss head screw, well, I'm gonna poke through my laminate on top, so that's not good. And if I try to like shim it with a washer or something like that, we can put a washer in here, well, it's still not enough. So we're gonna have to find a 5/8 screw. And I looked around the shop, I found a 5/8 screw here, just a nice countersunk pan head here, and that's gonna fit just great, but it's not the prettiest here. So I'm gonna go ahead and countersink all these holes, and then we're gonna use these 5/8 screws and mount this table up. So I have a little countersinking head here, and we're just gonna hit these. Oh, I'm gonna tighten it in my chuck. Okay, just a little bit. That's gonna get that screw a little bit more flush into there, and I think it's gonna look really nice. Like I was saying, I like to mount these off center ever so slightly. Okay, but I do want it square to the edge of the table. And I'm gonna bump it off center in both directions. Okay. And I'm gonna start with my middle hole here. Another nice thing about not having it centered is it's kind of an arbitrary measurement, so nobody can tell you your measurement was wrong. It's gonna look good either way. There we go. We got our table mounted up and ready to use. Let's go back to the van. All right. So we got our tabletop here mounted up, and you can see here. Okay. Slides in place, and this is a perfect size table for one person. So I could have a plate and a cup on here. I can grab my laptop, and I could do a little bit of office work here from the road if I needed to. The table's not so big that it's in the way, and if I need to get out of my seat, I can get up, I can slide this over here. It's totally out of the way to get in and out of the van. So our install is complete, but there's another cool feature I wanted to show you about these Lagun tables. We can keep the arm attached to the table, and on the base plate down here, there's this little rib that we can take the vertical arm, and that can slide onto here, and we can store the entire system together, and we can get these tight. Then we can take this whole assembly, so we can store it here behind the seat, and that's nice and safe. Which is a cool spot to do it. But if you want to go the extra mile, you can pick up one of these AVC table latches. I modeled this off one of those tray table latches on your seat back, and we 3D print these. They're pretty cool, made here in Colorado. And I'm gonna try VHB taping this on. I've never tried to double stick tape one on, but I thought, I'm not sure I want this permanently mounted on here for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick it on here, and we'll see if this works. The cool thing about these table latches is we have lots of different shims that are included with them. So if you have a thicker tabletop and you need to add a 1/4 inch shim to the top of that or something, you can stack these shims up and get it to fit nice and tight to whatever table size you have. So I like to use the 1/2 inch cleat that we have here for a base. And I can screw that down here into my floor. And then I can undo this latch, I can slide it out of place, and I can take it and use my table. Then all I have to do is bring it back under here, slide it in place, click, and we're ready for the road. Well, that install is a wrap for today. If you want to pick up your own table latch or your own B-pillar Lagun mount, go ahead and hit up the links in the description below, and you can order yours today. If you have questions about this install or our build out or AVC in general, hit us up in the comments and we'll take care of you there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the next one.